Okay, I'm going to do my first apology for the evening. I'm showing 6:33, and if any of you have been watching me for the last 4 years, 6:30, I've started these meetings. But I had an unexpected meeting this evening, and it just ran a little long, but even 3 minutes, I can probably be forgiven on this particular one. Ms. Barrow, are you ready?
I'm ready, sir.
Okay. The City Council meeting for October 17th, 2011 now come to order. Please remember times indicated next to agenda items are approximate times only. Please turn off all cell phones for the duration of the meeting. And will the City Clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Natal.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Snyder.
Here.
Councilmember Moreno.
Here.
Your light, sir. Thank you. Councilman Benson.
Here.
Councilwoman Carson.
Present.
Your light, ma'am. Well, there we go. Thank you. Councilwoman Teeter.
Here.
Okay, where are we?
Councilman Diaz.
Okay,
Here.
there we go.
Councilman McEldowney. Here. Councilman Bullock.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Will the audience please rise for a moment of silence and then join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance?
Mr. Mayor, could we also have a minute of silence and wish the family of Joe Gillis, he passed away last Friday, and just think about his family and keep them in your hearts?
Yes. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There we go. Okay, at this time, will the city staff please pass around the microphone for introductions?
Harvest Thomas.
Richard Smith.
Ellen Haug.
Guillermo Serna. Ben Cordova.
Tova Forgo.
Joy Bishop.
Gene Leffel, Board of Adjustment.
Greg Clemens, Public Works Department.
Michelle Rogers, City Manager's Office.
Jason Leslie, Finance Department.
John Howard, Information Technology.
Jim Hayes, Community Development.
Michelle Halstead, Communications.
Ms. Ryan Cordero, Government Relations.
Roger Tinkenberg, Finance.
Bill Baca, Chief of Police.
Oh, an easy one tonight. Okay, next item is citizen communication. Public roster was made available at the table at the entrance to council chambers for those who wish to address council. When I call your name, would you please come forward, state your name and address for the record. You're reminded that each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. City Council is reminded they are not to engage in discussion or debate, but may ask clarifying questions and express concern when appropriate. City Manager will generally assign staff members to get the necessary information to solve issues. The first person on the list is Ben Cordova. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Are you the gentleman I talked to on the phone?
I am.
Okay.
Yes, sir. My name is Ben Cordova. I've got some extra copies here.
Okay.
If can I pass them out?
Actually, if you give them to the city attorney.
Okay.
Thank you.
I recently went on a long walk. Actually, it's named my short walk. It was 344 miles that I did across Colorado. I started on Highway 287 up by, on the Wyoming state line. I walked south to Fort Collins, Longmont, Denver, Commerce City. I was in Commerce City 9/11 for the 9/11 Freedom Rally. I went south to Colorado Springs, Pueblo, Walsenburg, and Trinidad, and the New Mexico state line. I walked up to the New Mexico state line on Friday. I'm doing this walk because I want to help veterans. I am a disabled Vietnam veteran. I can only walk 10 miles a day, or sometimes less, because I've got neuropathy. I'm a diabetic, and I've got other health issues. But the veterans still face many, many problems. And I'd like to read part of this because one of my problems is memory loss. So I tend to get lost. Anyway, my short walk, 344 miles in 44 days, now complete. Now comes preparation for my long walk, 2,745 miles and 9 months of walking to raise funds and awareness for our veterans. The Veterans Administration has come a long way in the past 10 years, but still lags behind. Many of our veterans still need help with alarming suicide rate, unemployment, homelessness, claims with the Veterans Administration for health or disability issues, and many other problems. My name is Ben Cordova, founder of the Ben Cordova Foundation, nonprofit 501c3. I am a disabled Vietnam veteran that has walked across Colorado to raise funds and awareness for helping American veterans with many issues we are faced with. I have received news media coverage in Denver, Colorado Springs. I was awarded the prestigious Garrison Coin on behalf of Fort Carson for my efforts. The mayor of City of Trinidad presented me with a key to the city and a proclamation letter. VFW presented me with a U.S. flag with 48 states, 48 stars. On Thursday, October 6th, I attended a welcome event at the City of Pueblo, the home of heroes. I met with city dignitaries, American Legion representatives, friends, family, and supporters, and was presented with pins from the Pueblo administration and Pueblo County commissioners. On Monday, October 10th, at Walsenburg, Colorado.
Okay. Ordinarily, it's a 3-minute limit. Does council wish to extend that time for this gentleman? Does anyone have a problem with that? Okay. Mr. Cordova, in this particular instance, we are going to extend the time. Is that okay, Mr. Gaylor? Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Cordova.
Thanks, sir. On Monday, October 10th, at Walsenburg, I was greeted at the top of the hill of the Hogback by Mayor Bruce Quintana and Nick Vigil, many veterans and supporters who walked with me, along with a police escort. There was a veteran there in a wheelchair. I am limited to about 10 to 11 miles a day because of diabetes and neuropathy related to chemical exposure known as Agent Orange while serving in Vietnam. On February 1st, 2012, I will start my long walk across the nation, San Diego to Washington, D.C. I am asking for your financial, product, or present support. I would also like to request a proclamation letter from the City of Commerce City. You can view my mission and all details on how we will help veterans, along with my walking itinerary, under my webpage under the events tab on the BenCordovaFoundation.org. I can best be reached at 303-913 or my, 303-913-7220 or my webpage, theBenCordovaFoundation.org.
Okay. Do you want to make a comment?
Yes, Ben, welcome. I commend you, and you're healthier than you think because I see you working out sometimes.
Yes.
I think this is a very good cause, and I will donate to this, and I will contact you tomorrow.
Okay.
And maybe take it to your place of business, or we can meet up somehow.
Okay. When I first, I'm sorry. When I first got diagnosed with neuropathy, I was told that if I was active, that they would have to amputate my feet. After about 4 months ago, I went to a specialist, and they found out that my damage is to small nerve endings, to where creates a lot of pain. I lose my balance because of the pain and the burning. But they said that if I am very active due to the small nerve endings, that I could actually reverse my neuropathy, and I hope I can do it.
Okay. Mr. McEldowney?
Just want to say thank you so much for coming and giving us this update on the effort that you've undertaken. Quite an accomplishment already with the completion of your short walk, and you have my full support as you undertake the long walk, and hopefully we can get a number of folks to help come and support your endeavor. So thank you very much for what you're doing, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Snyder?
Yes, I'd also like to say congratulations for your success on your short walk, and it sounds like you're ready to go with your long walk, and I just want to let you know that we're wishing you all the best, and we'll be supportive of you, and I hope that it all goes really well for you. I think what you're doing is a great thing, and you're to be commended for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Bullock?
Yes, Mr. Cordova, you know, we spoke last week, and I told you before you got to the New Mexico border that I was going to bring it up before council this week to do a resolution for you from the city of Commerce City and see if the council would go along with it. Judging by the comments that have just been made up here on the dais, I feel that that resolution will be forthcoming for you. So thank you so much for your effort and your time for Vietnam veterans.
Thank you.
Mr. Flannery, I know that and Mr. Gaylor, I'm not sure who, I know that the resolution was going to come up during administrative business.
Yeah, actually, a proclamation would be more appropriate.
Okay.
So, council can direct staff at this point to prepare a proclamation for an upcoming meeting.
Does anyone on council have a challenge with that? Not seeing any. Then we won't need to bring it up at administrative business. You'll just handle it at this point. And I don't know the answer to this, Mr. Gaylor. Is this something that we could send to our Community for a Lifetime grant program? I don't know that it is.
He said it was a 501c3
Correct.
Organization, so that's the first qualification. So
Okay.
I don't see any
Okay,
legal
Mr.
problem.
Cordova, would you get with Mr. Flannery? Would you be the right contact? Yes. Just to get his information so that he would know how to apply? If you would talk to Mr. Flannery,
Okay.
and then we can take care of it from there.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, thank you, sir. Next person, Guillermo Serna. Good evening, sir.
I really don't have anything to say. I just wanted to give him an extra 3 minutes in case you didn't allow him 3 minutes.
Well, that was very nice of you.
So thank you very much.
Okay. And just so the audience knows, this was an exception because of what was being spoken about. And if someone were to have a similar kind of thing, we would probably make a similar decision. Okay, the next person is it Tova? Tova. Is Tova Forgo? Good evening.
Mayor, members of council, Tova Forgo, 7980 Olive Street. I just want to, on behalf of the Commerce City Business and Professionals Association, thank the city for providing the space for the candidate forum last Thursday, and also thank the members of the public who attended. Also, I'd like to let everybody know who may have missed it that it's going to be rebroadcast on Channel 8, and it's going to be run, there are two programs, Meet the Candidates, where they're one-on-one, and then also followed by the rebroadcast of the candidate forum. It'll be every day at 6 p.m. except Wednesday and Thursday, when it will be at noon. So also for folks out there watching, you should have received your ballots by now. If you haven't, please call the Adams County Election Office at 720-523-6500. So we hope that everybody participates in our civic process and votes. Thank you.
Yes. You give up your ability to complain if you don't vote.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I've just been approached by another gentleman who asked if he could be allowed to speak.
Sure, no problem. Would that person please come forward? Oh, hi. We'll need your name and address for the record.
Thank you. I'm back again. I'm Chuck Wolfersberger, 9605 East 112th Drive. I just, real briefly, I just want to let you know, I finally have my some brochures I put together about this proposal I briefly talked about maybe a month ago to City Council about possibly merging homeowners associations into metropolitan districts. I can give them to whomever so that they can pass them out to you, that you can take your time and read
The city
them.
attorney,
But,
please.
Okay. And that was pretty much it for now. I know that everybody's busy with budget and elections and so forth, so I
Very
won't bother
few
you
of
more,
us,
but,
matter of fact. Very few of us.
But I want to thank you for your work and your service, and I hope that this is something that also can. I truly believe will be a great benefit to Commerce City. Just real quickly, there's over 16 homeowners associations in Commerce City, which cover over 6,500 homes, and the approximate financial savings by doing these types of transactions would bring almost $10 million into those neighborhoods, which could be spent on parks, neighborhood watch programs, and so forth. So it's at no cost to the homeowners and at no cost to the city. So it's I think it's a great opportunity, and I'm really excited about it. Hopefully when you have some time, take a look, and feel free to call me if you got any questions. And that's pretty much it for now.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McEldowney?
Just real quickly, unfortunately, it sounds like I missed your original proposal because this is new and very, very exciting. The number one concern I hear from fellow neighbors in the northern part of town are the high taxes, and when we sit down and talk about how those taxes break down, and they understand the high proportion of their taxes that actually goes to their HOA or Metro District or both, they're quite shocked that it's just $58 that goes to the city. And so they wonder, how are we funding the parks and the like? So this is a really intriguing proposal. I look forward to reading it. Thank you very much for coming forward.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Okay, Mr. Benson?
Yes, are you going to be giving us some written materials on this?
I do. In fact, I've got probably too much, but I've got 25 brochures that I can give.
I would certainly like to get that. Thank you.
Yeah. If you would just give those to Mr. Gaylor, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very
Thanks.
much.
You have a good evening. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Carson.
Mr. Wolfsberger, is there a contact information? I just wanted to know if there was contact information.
There is. I need to double check. I didn't have time to finish getting my business cards printed. I was hoping I'd get them in the mail today, but I have my current work business cards, which will probably be changing by next year. But I can get that to make sure that that's in there.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, there's only one item on the consent agenda this evening, which is really nice. I'm open to a motion to approve the consent agenda, Mr. Marino. Mr. McEldowney? Second. I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Will the city attorney please read the title? I'm sorry.
Title reads, Ordinance 1870, an ordinance amending the 2011 budget of the City of Commerce City, Colorado by the recognition of the Department of Justice JAG Byrne Grant funds in the amount of $19,236 for equipment to be used by police department personnel and authorization of the expenditure thereof.
Okay, I've had a motion and a second. City attorney's read the title. Request a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Bullock? Thank you.
Okay, showing 9 yeses. Consent agenda is passed. Thank you very much. Next item, there's one public hearing scheduled for this evening. I'd like to open the public hearing, and it's on the 2012 proposed budget and mill levy. Will City Attorney Jerry Flannery please invite staff up to review the 2012 proposed budget and mill levy?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'd like to bring Mr. Tinklenberg up to present this item.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. Just in quick summary, the 2012 budget that is proposed shows revenues of $47.1 million. The expenditures in the general fund are a little over $4 million for administration, $860,000 for human resources, almost $9 million for finance, and that includes the lease payment on this building as well as insurance for all of the city operations. That would be property and casualty type of insurance, as well as health insurance. Community development is budgeted at $3.2 million, public safety at $13.5 million. Public Works is at $5.4 million. I think we have a guest that's in front of our projector up at the top there. So, Spider? Okay.
Is there?
Refuse collection is $1.9 million, and Parks and Recreation is at $6.3 million. Then, in addition to that, we have transfers both in and out of the general fund. So we have proposal to use $84,000 of general fund community justice money, and that comes from surcharges in the court. Also proposing to use a little over $17,000 from the Park and Recreation Equipment Reserve. We're proposing to transfer $700,000 from the Fleet Management Fund, $700,000 from the Information Technology Fund, and almost $863,000 from the General Fund balance. In addition to that, there is a transfer proposed of $5,696,000 of one-time dollars. If you recall, that was from the tax settlements in 2010. That would be transferred to the capital improvement preservation and capital improvement program and capital improvement preservation plan fund. Finally got that right. For a grand total of $55.2 million. Now, the transfers out would be Housing Authority, elected officials, retirement fund, sales and use tax, bond issue, and the CIPP fund. The large one, of course, are the bond issues for the various bond issues that were issued. We have a 2005 issue. Well, it was authorized in 2005 for a 2006 issuance and a 2008 issuance, and those are associated with Quebec Parkway and 56th Avenue improvements. And then the CIPP fund, 5.696. That goes, that's $1 million for the pavement management program, $370,000 for concrete flat work, as well as a little over $3 million for the eventual payments on the soccer fields. The general fund reserves, first of all, I'll talk about the fund balances. About mid-year 2011, we had $12.9 million in our fund balance. Of that, $7.9 million was one-time dollars, and with this budget, we're transferring $5.7 million to the CIPP, leaving $2.2 of one-time dollars. In addition, we're using $863,000 really in round numbers for the 2012 budget. So we would have $6.4 million in the fund balance. Our actual reserves, we have never had to dip into those ever. We have operating reserves of $4.6 million. In 2011, that's $4.5. Safeguard reserves, we have $6.6 million budgeted. That compares to $6.5 million for this year. And then the Tabor Reserve, which is required by the Colorado Constitution, $1.4 million compared to $1.2 million this year. So you can see our reserves are increasing from $12.2 million this year to $12.6 million next year. Are there any questions? That's very high level, 60,000-foot level.
Yep. Mr. Marino? Oh, sorry, Mr. McEldowney? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Mr. Benson?
Yes, thank you, Roger. Can you go back through those slides?
To any particular one, sir?
That one, no, the first one. We've got the one prior to that, or maybe the next one. We've got the general fund balance, CIPP, 5.7 million. We transferred it to the CIPP fund, same amount. Is that money earmarked for any particular capital improvement?
It's all earmarked. There are a variety of programs or projects that it's going towards. Did you want those reviewed?
I would like to. I don't know whether the rest of the council cares about that, but I'd like to see what that's for. Because that's part of the one-time money, isn't it?
Mr. McEldowney?
Yes, sir.
I know.
Can I just confirm that that's detailed in the exhibit that we received, I believe, last meeting or the meeting prior on the capital improvement preservation plan, right? This outlines each of the projects that have been identified to be used, for those dollars to be used on in 2012?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Benson, did you get a copy of that?
Mr. Tinklenberg, can you give me a breakdown of that?
That was in the materials passed out on the 10th last week.
I guess I wasn't focused on on that particular issue last week.
Mr. Marino.
Just for Councilman Benson's benefit, it's a couple of the projects are ones that we described at the budget meeting. For example, the concrete flat work. That was part of the discussion where we decided to forego repaving 71st and Elm Streets. But one of those projects I do remember was the concrete flat work. I believe the other was the cost-sharing agreement with Adams County to continue to build out some of those roads and sidewalks in the unincorporated areas in Adams County. I can't remember the rest.
I was not at the budget.
Oh, I'm sorry. You weren't. I apologize.
Okay. So are you okay, Mr. Benson, since it's in that book that you were given?
I've got the book. I'll just have to, I may have it right here.
Okay. Terrific. Thank you.
What page is that on?
It's broken out over a number of pages in there.
Okay. Just while he's looking at that, I know it's election time, but would you reaffirm what you said a minute ago, where we have not dipped into the reserves, that there are reserves, they are there, they are gaining, and no one has taken them to zero?
Certainly. As I mentioned earlier, and I put that slide back up on the screen, 1 year we budgeted to use reserves, and we did not have to do that. And we have never budgeted to use them again, and we have never had to dip into them again. And in fact, for 2011, we increased the reserves over what were available in 2010. And as you can see from this slide, they will be increased again for 2012. So our total in reserves is will be 12.6 million as of January 1st, 2012.
And just for the audience, I know it's election time. I know candidates will say absolutely anything that they think people are going to listen to. But the one that bothers me the most is that this council has taken reserves to zero from where it used to be in the golden years. That has not taken place, and if you hear it from a candidate, you may want to think about voting for that candidate, because they do not understand budgeting. Mr. Benson, are you okay now?
I think I will be after I look at this document.
Okay. Could we go forward, sir?
Or
can we go
or
ahead?
if Mr. Tinkenberg has the list, he could just briefly name the projects that are included in CIPP.
Okay. Well, number one, let me refer you to the CIPP book. And page 19 of that book has a breakout of the projects funded. And those are the ones that are primarily using the transfer from general fund. In terms of the budget itself, the budget document, if you look on page 9, it shows those individual projects as well, and it shows where that money is going. So let me review that with you. On page 9, it's called the Sources and Uses document, and it's the second group, which is labeled Capital Improvements and Preservation Plan, CIPP Fund. In there, on the right-hand side of the page, you'll see the first one is shown as 104th Avenue multi-use path. So run down that list. The third one there is Boys and Girls Club, $240,000. That's using one-time dollars transferred from the CIPP, or from the general fund, I'm sorry. In addition, there's concrete flat work, $370,000. So that also is using one-time dollars being transferred from the general fund. Then you move on down to pavement management, about a little over halfway down that list, $1 million. That's using one-time dollars from the general fund fund balance. The second one after that is recreation center enhancements. It shows $270,270. Actually, $99,500 of that is from the one-time dollars being transferred from the general fund. The rest of that is grant money, as well as pass-through dollars from lottery and Adams County open space. And then the second one after that is soccer field payment. You'll see that we've listed $3,710,000. That's 7 years of payments that are being set aside from the one-time dollars. Stormwater utility fee, $200,000. That was the phase 2 of the stormwater utility study, and that will eventually be repaid. It's pretty small. I don't know if you can read that on the screen, but $270,000 would be, I'm sorry, $200,000 would be repaid from the eventual utility fee. And then the technology infrastructure and police radio replacement, that money is coming from general fund, but it's not from one-time dollars. So that's the breakout of that $5,696,000. And all of that, like I mentioned before, is on page 9 of the large budget book. Any other questions?
Mr. McEldowney?
More just a comment. If you're using the capital improvement preservation plan that was sent out last week, these begin also on page 19, right? And we've got a
Correct.
breakdown of each expenditure area, multi-year projects, parks, technology, et cetera, and it actually breaks them down pretty well and shows you the year-over-year expenditures on those, where they've been a multi-year or where it's a one-year allocation. So to me, it's a little more effective than the page that we're looking at here on screen, but either place has the same data.
Correct.
Mr. Benson?
Yes, Mr. Tingelberg, I'm looking at page 9, and in the middle section, there's a total financial sources are $7,121,000, and the transfer from the general fund balance is the $5,696,000, the one-time money, right?
Correct.
To arrive at the $7,121,000. And you said the soccer field payment, that looks like something that's being set aside and put into another fund, which would continue to be a cash asset on the part of the city. What exactly, how is the $3,710,000 accounted for?
That's 7 years of payments. That's what's remaining under the agreement. And so because we had the large infusion of one-time dollars in 2010, the recommendation to council was to set that all aside so that those future payments are covered, and that does that. So in the CIPP fund, we have all of the individual projects, and the money that's set into those projects continues from year to year without any additional appropriation necessary, and we don't have to reappropriate. Because under the charter, capital improvement projects are perpetual projects. They don't have to be annually funded, annually approved.
But the $3,710,000, is that listed both as a liability and as a cash, a liability and then as a cash asset? Is there cash money sitting there?
In the CIP fund, yes. It would be listed as a future liability as well as a current asset, and the two match.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Mr. Marino?
Mr. Tinklenberg, in our discussion about the legislative budget, there was the inclusion of a line item for Sand Creek. Is this in addition to that legislative line item budget, or line item, or is this the same?
This would be in addition to that. The appropriation in the council's budget is a membership fee, as I understand it, and this is for actual project, actual physical construction.
Great, and I'm assuming that that $85,000 that we're appropriating will obviously go to improvements on our section of the Sand Creek Trail?
That is correct.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Okay, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to testify on this item? Okay, seeing none. Is there any further discussion by members of City Council? Seeing none, I'll now entertain a motion to continue the public hearing of the 2012 proposed budget and mill levy to October 24th, 2011, to provide the public time to review the document and address council on October 24th, 2011, before final adoption. Mr. McEldowney.
So moved.
Okay, Mr. Marino.
Second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded to continue the public hearing on the 2012 proposed budget and mill levy. Request a voice vote, please. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is presentation of staff recommendations for the Quality Community Initiative. Now ask City Manager Flannery to invite staff to come forward to begin the presentation. And then I just have one favor for next time. I'm getting a little long in the tooth. And when you use colors, if you could make them so they're more contrast. I had trouble figuring out what the names were in that dark green.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
I'd like to ask Ms. Rain Cordero to present this item.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. Next time we'll make sure that we don't put green on there.
It's just for us somewhat more mature people.
You got it. So just a very quick background. Earlier this year, staff led by Mr. Tinklenberg presented the results of the long-range financial plan. There were significant differences and a large gap between the estimated needs in terms of infrastructure for the estimated growth in the next 20 to 30 years for the city, as well as differences within the estimated revenue that will be generated. So City Council gave direction to staff to put together a stakeholder group that would look at the long-range financial plan and then come back with some strategies and a formal recommendation back to City Council on how to meet that gap. Just very quickly wanted to run over the output, everything that staff has done since we got that direction from City Council. In July, we posted an ad on City News explaining in broad sense what the stakeholder group would do and the direction from City Council. We did not receive a large number of a lot of interest from folks wanting to participate. So we decided internally to rethink the process, and essentially what we did is we got together a group of staff who've worked with large boards having to deal with this kind of important decision in the past. And we explored what that process of putting together those boards was like. So first we generated a draft charter, which we'll see later, and you have a copy on your desk, but I have it in this presentation. Then we decided to list the broader groups that share interests towards the success of Commerce City. And once we had those groups together and we had a charter, then we began to identify key individuals that fit within those groups. And so tonight we're coming to you with not only a draft charter, we're also coming with a list of proposed members for this stakeholder group that we're calling the Quality Community Initiative Stakeholder Group. And so I'll go over the charter very quickly. The Quality Community Initiative is led by a group of stakeholders that have diverse interests and investments in the successful future of Commerce City. The QCI stakeholder group includes Commerce City residents, business owners, nonprofit representatives, developers, special interests, city staff, and anyone who chooses to be part of it. And it is designed to be an inclusive group. The purpose of the group is through the formation of a clear concept of long-term needs in Commerce City and through continued interactions with the community and City Council to ultimately present a recommendation to City Council on a strategy to achieve long-term goals that are well supported by not just the committee, but also the community at large. And within that is included the review of city infrastructure project priorities and costs, prioritize that list, review potential funding mechanisms to support the projects, study election alternatives and realities, and recommend to City Council on priority projects, prefer ways to fund the projects, and if or when to go to the ballot. As far as schedule, what we foresee is that the QCI will start meeting in November and use the QCI would spend it identifying viable strategies and funding mechanisms that would help the city reach their goal. Then the last 3 months, from January through June, will be spent gathering feedback from the community and studying the election landscape and taking those into consideration while formulating a formal recommendation to City Council, which we expect should come by the end of June 2012. As far as next steps and deliverables, we hope to identify all long-term capital needs within Commerce City in accordance with council priorities and guided by the Commerce City C3 Vision Plan, which is the city's comprehensive master plan. We will present the findings to City Council as well as recommended strategy to achieve the goals, complete work in a manner that results in committee consensus and broader community support, and finish activities for decision-making prior to the 2012 election. Now, keep in mind that it could come back that 2012 is not the right year, in which case then the timeline gets extended. Now, can you see that?
Much better. Thank you.
Those are the proposed members as of right now. As you can see, we have identified a pretty diverse group, both that represent the citizenry in Commerce City as well as businesses and nonprofits and industry. We also have a good balance among the citizens between the North and the South. And we've taken the liberty to recommend a chairperson and 2 co-chairs. And again, I consider them a pretty diverse group that brings a number of strengths to the committee. There are some members there that I've left only the organization that they're part of, and that's because we've not received a formal agreement that, or we don't have a name of whom will participate, but we've heard that they are willing to participate. Everyone else whose name is there has agreed to be part of the committee. And as far as staff recommendation, our recommendation is that council please provide additional input as necessary, and that you provide approval to the charter and the membership list so that the group can get going. Any questions?
Mr. Benson?
Yes, if there was a citizen or citizens who wanted to become a part of this, would they just need to call you?
Yes,
Put their
please.
name in the hat and just talk to you about it?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Bullock?
Ms., this being an ad hoc group, is there a definite need for a charter?
Well, in our discussions with staff, we felt that because there was a very clear direction from City Council, a direction that took a lot of back and forth discussion and consideration, we felt that it was important to make sure that that was very clear from the get-go. If they have a need, if the group has a need to amend the charter, I think that flexibility exists. At the same time, they would have to come back to council and express why, and certainly convince council of why they feel that's necessary.
Okay.
But we did feel that they needed to have the charter ahead of time.
Okay, I agreed with you 100%, but I wanted you to present that reasoning behind the fact of the charter, because a lot of people don't realize that this charter is going to stay around long after the group has disbanded, and it's going to be the basis and the premise of why this went forward for a long-range financial plan. And councils 10 years down the road can look back at this charter.
Will staff be represented in this group, or are they simply going to be responsible for facilitating?
The way we envision it, we will be part of it. We will be providing a significant amount of information to the group, and we will be assisting in the facilitation. At the same time, we hope that the chair and the co-chairs will take key roles in terms of the facilitation of the group.
But in terms of like an actual staff member, in terms of like voting ability, that will not be included?
I don't foresee that, no.
Thank you.
Ms. Teeter?
Yes, Ms., I want to thank you for months of hard work and dedication with this group, and looks like there's a very good mix, a diverse group of citizens and, let's see, businesses and all. I'm happy and proud that you asked me to be a part of it, and I'm so looking forward to serving on this. Thank you.
Mr. McEldowney?
Thank you, Mr. Cordero. I'm excited to see this starting to take real shape and get started. That said, as I look at the timeline on the next steps and deliverables, one of the things that I wanted to see if staff had given consideration to yet was at what interval reports would be made available to council. Would these occur at sort of the end of each of the phases that you've identified in the schedule, or what frequency would be appropriate to keep us apprised?
You know, that was kind of I omitted what I meant to write on there is that we intend that they will be coming at least on a monthly basis back to council.
Oh, that's great.
To provide feedback and to get input from city council. So I will make sure that that's captured in the charter, and if you want to add that to the approval, then that would be great.
That would be wonderful. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Diaz?
Thanks, Mr. Cordero. Actually, a couple of my questions were already asked, but you pointed out that you had trouble recruiting for this group. How many people would you consider ideal in terms of how large would you see this list be?
I'm sorry, Councilman Diaz, would you repeat the question?
Oh, yeah, no, I was wondering, because you said you had trouble recruiting to get more people into this group, so you started to be a little bit more strategic. How big can you see this list growing in terms of people participating? What's ideal for you?
Well, once we started calling people directly and asking them to participate, we had no problem recruiting. So it went really smoothly from that point forward. Before that, we had a little bit of problems getting interest from folks. I don't see it growing by a lot more. I get a few. Thank you.
Happy birthday. Should we sing?
Yes. No.
Happy birthday to
It's not
you.
necessary.
Happy birthday
to you.
Happy birthday, dear Miss. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
Ms. Snyder.
Well, that was just cute. I, too, wanted to thank you for all your hard work that you put into getting this together. I think it's a very exciting group that's going to be doing some exciting things. And I would also like to thank you for the opportunity for asking me to serve, and I'm looking forward to it. Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Flannery.
Before you get to the next item, I just wanted to mention we are having problems with Channel 8. Not sure if it's a vendor issue with Granicus, but Michelle, did you want to mention anything? I think she just sent out a press.
I know, and it's interesting because people will say, how come it appears that you're taking messages during the day? These are the messages I've been getting from the citizens. I was giving you a minute to get through that.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. We are experiencing technical difficulties on Channel 8, and it's affecting some of the streaming on the web as we try to figure it out. Rest assured that the full broadcast will be rebroadcast on Channel 8 and our website. So give us a few minutes, and hopefully we'll get it back up and running, but if not, it will be available in its entirety later this week.
Thank you very much. Okay, I now entertain a motion to go into. Oh, I'm sorry,
Mayor,
Mr. Gaylor.
In speaking to Mr. Cordero, he would like to have council's approval by a motion at this point to be followed by a resolution formally adopting that charter. And so tonight, if you would, is to approve the charter by motion and the appointees all in one motion would be fine, and then with the direction to follow it with a resolution for adoption at an upcoming meeting.
Wonderful. Mr. McEldowney, would you like to make that motion?
I would move that council approve the stakeholder group charter brought forth by Mr. Cordero, including the recommendations for committee membership, and would include in that motion a request for resolution to effectively form the group.
Okay. Ms. Snyder?
Second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. Make voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion passes. Thank you. Ms. Snyder, I need a motion now to go in executive session. You can read the motion from the item off your agenda.
Okay. I move that we go into an executive session for the purpose of contract negotiations pursuant to CRS 24-6-4024E concerning the Xcel Energy franchise agreement and for the purpose of receiving legal advice pursuant to CRS 24-6-4024B concerning police litigation.
Okay, Mr. McEldowney?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Go in executive session. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, voice vote, please. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, the same. Motion passes. We will reconvene in the council workroom in 30 minutes, I think. Okay, thank you. Okay. Next item is administrative council business. Mr. McEldowney? Or is that from before?
I believe that's from before.
Okay. Mr. Marino?
Yes, based on last week, having voted on the prevailing side, I'd move to reconsider Resolution 2011-48.
Okay. And do you want to talk about it?
If we get a second, and then we can do
Okay.
discussion.
Do I have a second? Okay. I have a motion and a second to reopen, I'm sorry, what was the number?
2011-48.
2011-48. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Do you want to give us a short summary before we vote on it?
So
I'll come back to you, Mr. Gaylor, as soon as he's done.
I think based on last week's discussion regarding Resolution 2011-48, which approved Council Policy Number 5, which deals with travel and expenses. I think a few people left last week unsatisfied by the discussion. Our original proposal was to say that we were going to live within our means and make that commitment to the citizens and limit out-of-state travel to 2 trips a year, and then the Colorado Municipal League Conference that also occurs once a year. So what I'd like to do is reconsider the resolution for us to revisit the discussion, not hash it out in depth like we did last week, but simply adjust the amount. As many in the audience know, we moved from based on a amount of trips per year to a cost model and how much those trips actually cost, which I think was a good thing for this council to give predictability in the city budget. But we left feeling that the amount that we ultimately approved was on the high side. So I'd like to add amendment and with council support to reduce that amount to a more manageable figure in line with the original proposal.
And do you have that amount in mind?
I do. The amount, estimated amount that includes the 2 out-of-state travel trips a year plus CML is $7,000. What we approved was $8,500. By approving it at $7,000, we can directly cut out $10,000 out of the legislative budget, which I think is a good thing. Shows the citizens that we are also cutting costs. So that would be the proposal, and I'm prepared to make that amendment after we vote on the reconsideration of the resolution.
Okay. Now, Mr. Gaylor, my question is, and you're probably going to give me all those answers anyway. He wants to reopen it and then bring it down to 7,000. What I don't want to do is get into another giant discussion because we've already done that. Is there a way to get that accomplished?
Right. Now, here's my cautionary advice to the council in this regard. Because normally, when the council is going to consider a resolution, it's an item that's on the agenda and is advertised for the public, and you can't go back and start changing a resolution that you've adopted at the meeting without putting it out there for the public to be aware that you're going to be discussing it again.
Okay.
Now, if we're limited to, and this, if I heard the discussion from Councilman Marino correctly, we're limited to subparagraph B, which only pertains to the total amount that can be expended for attendance by members of the council for training and travel budgeted in the city budget. If that's the only thing we're talking about, then as your parliamentarian, I'm going to rule that you can consider and reconsider that one item this evening and vote on it this evening. If you're going to be discussing the resolution in general
No.
and the travel policy in general, then we need to do, we have a vote, and then we'll set it for a future council agenda where we'll advertise it and discuss it. So if we're limited to just that one item, you can discuss that this evening and vote on it this evening.
Okay. Mr. Marino, do you have anything else before I go to someone else? That's it. Ms. Teeter?
Well, do you want me to second it, or has it already been seconded?
It's been seconded.
Okay.
Yes. So we've got a motion and a second, correct?
Mm-hmm. And this is just for reconsideration.
Just for the reconsideration. Where does the change come then?
Okay, then, if this passes.
Yes.
Now it's open for a motion to make the amendment.
Money, okay. So I have a motion and a second to open it and reconsider it. Do I need to open that for discussion, or can I just take a vote?
You can take a vote.
Okay. Be a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same.
No.
Okay, so if I read this right, it's Mr. Benson and Mr. Bullock. Are they the only two no votes I have? Okay, the motion passes 7-2. Now, Mr. Marino.
I would make it a motion, or sorry, I move that we amend Council Policy Number 5 and change the $8,500 per council member figure not to exceed in travel to $7,000.
Okay, so that's his motion. Ms. Teeter?
Second the motion?
So I have a motion and a second.
And that's paragraph B of Council Policy 5 for...
Now, do I need to open that for discussion, Mr. Gaylor? Yes?
Now it's up for discussion.
Okay. Mr. Bullock?
I would go along with Mr. Marino's motion with the fact that any council member that has other scheduled meetings, steering committee or any otherwise, that their budgets stay the same. Because I don't understand how you're going to have one size fit all when we have council members that do more than this. The oncoming council members will be doing nothing except going to CML and NLC if they choose to. Council members that are on here already, if they choose not to go to CML and NLC, won't need the $7,000. But I'm on a steering committee for NLC, and I have 2 extra meetings a year. That isn't going to break that $10,000 budget. Out of that $10,000 budget, we're talking about the other $1,500 for one council member. So if Mr. Marino is agreeable for the people that are on steering committees to be able to attend their steering committees, because I don't feel that I should have a punitive amendment set against me for my work, but I understand the fact that anyone else that isn't doing anything on a steering committee or anything else, $7,000 will be plenty enough money. Would you be agreeable to that, Mr. Marino?
Mr. Marino, you're actually next up.
Councilman Bullock, I certainly understand your position, and what I would advocate for, instead of separating out different amounts for different council members, I do feel that the $7,000 should be the base amount per council member that is allotted for travel. What I would say is that to have staff look at, we have a line item for professional development, for that particular item to be included under that line item on the budget. That way we don't parcel out different amounts for different council members. That staff, based on the commitments of your needing to go to those steering committees for National League of Cities, that we have staff look at what those estimated costs are, produce that in a line item budget, or a line item on the budget for professional development, and if this council should approve that, then that would be okay. But my concern is having different amounts allotted amounts for travel for different council members.
But
that's
it would
my
only
concern.
be one amount different. There is no one else on council that is going to be on a steering committee. And any future councils, it's been brought up to get on a steering committee, the process it takes, any future person on council would have to achieve a certain level and still come back to the council. We're talking about one person. We aren't talking about 2 or 3 or different amounts. And then, and see, the problem that arises with going to another budget is instead of dealing with one subject now we're dealing with 2 separate subjects in that same item, where we could just keep it down to one separate number in that item instead of then going to career development and, we're adding A and now we've had B there too. So I'm trying to keep it at A for one person.
Okay. Right now, you've got the motion, and we're in discussion. In order for that to change, we're going to we'd have to start all over. So what I'd like to do is get through this list fairly quickly of the people who are up here, vote on your motion. See, if it passes, we're done. If it doesn't pass, then you can do something else. Mr. Benson?
How much time did we spend on this last week? An hour and a half on this one issue?
Yes.
And we finally came up with some agreement among, I think it was unanimous last week. And I'm thinking, there's at least three people on this council that aren't going to be here in another 6 weeks. And if this is going to be changed, it ought to be up to the new council to do that, because it's going to affect them. We got 3 people going off for sure. There could be 5 going off of council. I don't think it's right for this council to make a rule that's going to apply in the future unless the door's going to be left open for the future council to try to do this again. And we spent so much time talking about this last week. My gosh, there's got to be some end to this. I can't. Excuse me, sir. Did you have something to say?
I did. That's why we're trying to get this done fast, so we can go straight to the vote, figure out whether it's going to pass, and then go on. And so
I would just
I'm trying to keep that
I
time
would
down.
encourage everyone to let the future council make a change if that's what the future council wants to do, and not have this council, which is going to be minus at least 3 people in 6 weeks, make this decision that's going to affect at least 2012, probably. That's just my...
Ms. Teeter?
Well, I'm ready for a vote, but I also would say that I think, Mr. Bullock, at one time last year, you used your discretionary funds. That would be available for the extra trips, too. So I'm ready for a vote.
Okay, Mr. McEldowney? Mr. Bullock?
I understand exactly what Mr. Benson said on the fact that we did go around Robbins Barn last week, and we came to an agreement, and I agree with him. If it's going to come down to it, I can understand that there are people here that say, I'm ready for my vote and everything for a vote that is going to directly affect not them, but someone else. I think it should be left to the next council. And, I mean, I don't think that's going to be a popular view, but if this council wants to be the one that guts the training program for next council, I will bring it up for reconsideration when the next council is seated.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Carson.
I don't know if anybody would be open to this, saying that this council would support NLC by saying that we would provide one member from this council to serve on a steering committee, and that we would fund 1-2 travels a year for that person that sat on that steering committee. on top of each council member being able to attend 2 NLCs and 1 CML. I don't know what anybody's feeling about that is.
Okay. I know I've had interest already from this council not to go into an hour and a half, and I'm getting second and third times on these, on people. We need to find out whether it's going to pass or not. Mr. Flannery.
Mr. Mayor, if you go from 8,500 per council member to 7,000, that's a reduction of 1,500, and you may have seen the email sent out about 5:30 from Mr. Aker. I just want to make sure that that there's an understanding that we will be, if there's a perception that there'll be 7,000 in travel and training for conferences, that number will be reduced because there's 7,000 currently in travel and training, and then the 1,500 covers mileage and other training. If you reduce it by 1,500, we'll go in and probably reduce those other things proportionately.
Okay.
So I just don't want anybody to have a conception that they're going to look at their travel and training for conferences and expect 7,000, because that 7,000 is total for all of that.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Marino?
Just quickly, I think we have a motion on the floor. If we continue to debate about the issue and add further amendments to this, I mean, this was supposed to be really just an administrative change in changing the actual amount and reducing that 8,500 figure to 7,000, which is, I will reiterate, the estimated cost of 2 out-of-state trips plus CML per year. So I would just say that the door is not closed on this issue. What this proposal was supposed to serve as is a base, that each council member, this is your base. And I think it's a very reasonable base. And if Councilman Bullock wishes to reconsider this when the new council is seated, then that's Mr. Bullock's prerogative. So I guess that's all I have to say about that.
Okay. Mr. Bullock and Mr. Benson, what I'm hoping is we're not just going to keep continuing going back and forth. I would be willing to let you talk one more time, but I would really like to bring this to a vote. Mr. Benson or Mr. Bullock first.
In previous meetings, it's been brought up that we need to talk to NLC about changing their policy on training and travel. And that is a good proposal. But how do you do it if you're not at the table? The committee that I'm on the steering committee, is the exact committee that you want me to talk to them about training and travel. And it's, I really don't understand how we're actually trying to tailor this to one size fits all for everyone. I've said it once, I said it again, and I'm going to say it for the third time, and you may hear it for the fourth time. New council members coming on here, possibly 5, we know they're going to be 3. This 7,000 will be a adequate budget for them, because if they choose to go to NLC and CML, that is going to pay for it. But for people that are already on council that are doing more, we're using a council that is seated that's going out in less than a month to change a budget, and I really consider it, they're trying to gut a budget at the expense. Now, this might sound vicious, but I don't think anybody's legacy on this council is so weak that they would try to gut the budget of the next council coming in to their own benefit.
Okay.
I know, Mr. Natel, I'm
done,
still
sir.
speaking. I know what I need for travel for the two conferences I go for steering committee and NLC. I didn't go to CML last year, and CML isn't a big priority on my list. But what is a priority are the steering committees I'm on. I would like the consideration for those, either through the legislative budget as a line item, or leave my 8,500 intact. Thank you.
Okay, just as an aside, this was not brought up by one of the three of us that are leaving. Mr. Benson.
Yes, two questions. First to Mr. Flannery. Are you saying that the $7,000 would include the mileage that we turn in?
That's correct. The 8,500 that the council directed staff to put in the budget from last week, there's 7,000 for There's 7,000 for each council member for career development meetings and conferences. There's $100 for career development and training. There's $944 for career development mileage reimbursement. So when you go to a career development seminar, the mileage to and from, that's all part of that amount. So that's all part of the 8,500.
What about just our normal mileage that we turn in at the federal rate? I put about 4,000 miles on my car every year. Is that in addition to what we're talking about, or is that included in what we're talking about?
Yeah, that's also in the 944. The 944 that I mentioned, career development mileage reimbursement, that's also part of the mileage reimbursement that you submit for on this, in coming to and from council.
So because that would mean that I'd only get reimbursed for about half the miles that I put on my car every year for city purposes. It's a 50-mile round trip for me to go to Dr. Cog, plus a lot of other things. I didn't know that we were placing a limitation on that kind of mileage, the mileage that we turn in, and you multiply it by the federal rate, which is about 50 cents.
Yeah.
So I'm running about $2,000 a year just from the 4,000 miles that I put on my car on city business. I don't know, that would be a problem for me. I don't think it's right for me to have to eat that kind of mileage, but well, I don't know that. I don't understand. That's what I'm asking about. I didn't think that was going to be included in I thought what we were talking about was going to workshops such as NLC, CML, steering committee meetings. I might have a meeting that I need to go to for E470 or Dr. Cog. I thought that was what this was for, and not our normal city mileage, or maybe the mileage going up to Breckenridge for CML. I thought that was something over and above the amount of money.
What the council has had in the past is a pool of money in their budget for these trips. And so not everybody travels the same amount. Not everybody spends the same amount per trip. So when you go in and specifically say, this is your allotment per council member, then that's specifically assigned to you then, so that if somebody else doesn't travel as much, but you travel more, that in the past has been accounted for. When you break it out and say you've got a certain amount of budget for you as one individual council member, then that ends up becoming more of a budgetary number that you have to deal with and that we have to keep you on.
Well, so this is not a change, you're saying. It's a pool of money, and the people that are doing the traveling are going to be able to get more out of the pool than others.
What I described and what you just described is what we used to do. When you assign a certain amount per council member, that causes a little bit more restriction, and that basically has you budgeting more for your own trips and making sure that you're following your line, what your budget line is.
Well, I mean, if I have to go to Dr. Cog, E470, if I go to various conferences around town, it's not me having a choice of budgeting. It's me saying I'm going to spend my time on behalf of this city and not get reimbursed for the mileage that it takes me to drive there and back.
If you look at it in two categories, say conferences and travel, that's a $7,000 number in this budget that's part of the discussion tonight. The 1,500 is in addition to that, and that covers all these other things, as far as mileage reimbursement and other day conferences and those types of things. So if you go from 8,500 to 7,000, $1,500 has to come out of the other categories, and probably, so if you go to the next year's budget and you go to travel and you're expecting to see $7,000 in there for travel and conferences, that number isn't going to be 7,000, it's going to be less than that.
That's even worse than I thought then. And I guess, I heard, to limit this council to one person who could serve on a steering committee on it. It's an honor to be on a steering committee from NLC. And to limit this council, those that have the ambition or the desire to serve on that steering committee, to limit that to one person on this council, I think would be a huge mistake. I mean, our city needs to be out there networking with other cities and to be working with people from other jurisdictions all over the nation in formulating policies such as the steering committees do formulate. I just have a lot of problems with, there are some people that want to do more because they have the time, they have the inclination. Others, because of their family situation, their work situation, they can't do more. I don't blame them for that. But I would just ask, don't penalize those of us who might want to do more. Because, when I go out of town, it's not a vacation. I'm going to workshops, I'm meeting with our congressional delegation. I have to take a computer and a printer with me so that I can get my own work done at night. It's not a vacation. It just means that I've got to work between 7 o'clock and midnight to get the work that I'm a self-employed person. But I choose to do that because I view that as being my job that I've undertaken on behalf of this city. And I don't feel like that the money that I have to expend to do that should come out of my personal pocket. And it looks like that's what we're trying to get into, is my personal pocket. I should be reimbursed and made whole for all expenses that I incur on behalf of this city. And this is much worse than, the way you've described this is much worse than I thought it was to begin with. So I will be definitely voting against this.
Mr. Marino.
I'd like to call the question.
Okay. Call the question. Mr. Gaylor, can I just, what's happening is the two of them are just going back and forth. So can we just call the vote to see where it goes, or
Yeah.
what do we need to do at this point, sir?
When someone calls the question, then you need to have a vote to see if the question should be called.
Okay.
And if that passes, then you can terminate debate.
Terrific. So right now, is
You
that a
need a
motion
vote.
and then I need a second?
You need a
So I have a
vote.
motion to call the vote. Do I have a second?
I don't think you need a second, do you?
No, you don't.
I don't need a second. I could just do a vote?
Right.
Voice vote?
Roll call.
Well,
You have to
roll
have
call.
2/3 in order for the question to be called, so
Yeah.
6 members of this council would have to vote yes to terminate discussion.
Just to call the vote, not to stop the discussion.
Just, this vote is just to stop debate.
Yes.
And it takes a 2/3 vote to pass.
Okay. So just a voice vote?
Well,
Or should we just go
probably-
down the line so we know who the numbers
Yeah.
are? Okay, Mr. Marino.
Yes.
Your machine is ready if you want to do it that way.
Oh, okay, let's just do that. Okay, I got a 7-2, so that stops the discussion. Is that correct, sir?
Right.
Now, I have a motion and I have a second. So now, is it a voice vote okay?
Well, because of the controversy, I would suggest
And you've got to
an
set up
individual.
again? Is that right?
You're ready to go?
Terrific. The motion is to lower the number to 7,000. Is that correct, Mr. Marino? And I have a second. Again, roll call vote. 7-2, passes. Mr. Gaylor and Mr. Flannery, you know what you need to do. Correct? Okay, thank you. Okay, I have two people up here. Is it additional administrative council business, Mr. Marino? I still have you up here.
I'm sorry, no.
Okay. Mr. Bullock, is yours additional admin? Ms. Teeter?
I don't know if this should be under report or not. I want to commend the police department on,
Probably reports.
Okay.
Because you're not asking for them to take any action. Mr. Bullock, did you change your mind?
I have administrative business.
That's what we were calling for, sir.
I would like the city to send flowers to the Gillis family, if it's, and take care of that? Okay. I'll get the address and everything for you.
Is that all you had, Mr. Bullock? Okay. I have a question that comes before council. I'm really not looking for any action, but I think the next council is going to need to take some action on it. Presently, we are expected to act as grown-ups on this council regarding travel. It has, let's say, not always been as well as it could have. I would, and again, this is not for the council as it sits now, but I think it's going to have to be something for the council that sits later. You're going to have to come up with a decision. At the present time, I do not believe anybody is auditing anything that comes out of council travel. So there are chances that some things could be misrepresented. I don't know whether this would be a council group that maybe deals in a semi-ethics procedure or not, but at the present time, stuff can go through on travel that nobody even looks at, and it's paid and done, and if nobody catches it, it just continues on until somebody decides they're going to look into it. I am not asking for any action on this. I'm just suggesting that the next council that sits may want to look at having a smaller group of council members look at travel, having somebody from the fiscal look at travel, so that we don't have the challenges of people questioning what we do, and it makes it way more transparent. Again, I am not asking for any action. It is strictly an idea of mine that can be or cannot be dealt with the next council. But right now, it's not near as transparent as it needs to be. Mr. Benson, did you have something for administrative business?
I just had a comment on your administrative business. What specifically?
It's not asking for any action.
I know you weren't, but I'm asking you, what specifically are you talking about?
At times, some charges may come to the city that may not have met the front page test.
Well, like what?
It could be any of a number of things.
No, I'm not asking what could be. Do you know of anything tangible and specific that you're...
I would leave that. It would be 1,000 things, and I don't feel I need to give examples. I'm just referring. So, Mr. McEldowney?
You're just speculating, okay.
I am speculating.
Because there are some people who are always going to challenge whatever records you might keep.
Yes,
I do think that it's good, but I think this is something that the future council, I would vote for that. I think the future council ought to be able to vote on that. I think people need to be held accountable. There's no problem with that, but I would just like to know, I don't think you know what specifically you're talking about.
I could give you one example that it could be people staying an extra day or leaving a day early. And that could be an example.
As long as they pay for it.
As long as they would pay for it, it would be okay, as long as it wasn't a city expense.
Right.
Mr. McEldowney, did you change your mind, or?
No, I was just waiting to get my shot.
Okay.
I think it's a great suggestion. I think rather than trying to descend into that conversation tonight, that it's a matter for the next council.
Yes.
Identify designates from the council to form a proposed policy, bring it forward back to the council. But again, I think it's a matter that we set aside for the moment.
That would be great.
Come back at it later.
Terrific. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda would be long-range financial plans, and there are no new reports. Is that correct, Mr. Flannery? We would then go into reports. Mr. Bullock.
Yes, I attended the community meeting for the dog track on Saturday, and evidently they were a very tight group because they started it a little bit after 1, and they were done a little bit after 2. And it seems like that all the ideals they wanted to convey for the dog track, they got them out there and did it in record time. Right, Mr. Smith? Okay. And I also attend the Suncor Energy Open House, and that was a very nice affair, and it's from their offices on the 29th floor. They can actually see their refinery from their offices. And the one last thing I wanted to say is this budget expense report that we got left at our seats. If everybody takes this home and takes out everything except for travel out of the 505, you'll see really how little is spent on travel.
Okay, Mr. McEldowney?
No further report. My primary meeting was canceled last week.
Okay, Mr. Diaz?
No reports.
Ms. Teeter?
2 things. I, too, attended the Suncor
Next to
Energy
last.
Open House. Nice gathering, a lot of networking. Also want to commend a program that our police department has that I was unaware of. A little close relative of mine has been being bullied at his elementary school, and I didn't know a program took place, and I was just so frustrated. And called Chuck Sonnier, and there is such a program. They actually go into the classroom, and they teach about bullying and why you shouldn't do it and all. And I think it's a great program to have. To see a law enforcement officer there in front of you, I think you're going to get a lot more, what word am I trying to say, from the child that is doing the bullying. You know, it would make him not want to do that again. That program is at Chuck Sonnier, Tom Poe, Kayla Finder. I commend you and the police department and you, Chief, and whoever came up with it's a great idea. Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Marino?
No report.
Mr. Benson?
Yes, October the 11th, we had my monthly award meeting. We had as our guest Don Quick, who explained to everybody the Initiative 1A to extend the district attorney's term limits to 3 terms, which will be on the ballot in both Adams County and Broomfield County, which is what's called the 17th Judicial District. So I think he pretty well explained. It's not like vote for Don Quick. It's like give the district attorney a 3-term limit. I know he plans to run again. He plans to win, but some people look at elections as being term limits, and they can very easily serve that role. But anyway, that's what he wants. It's 1A. On October the 13th, Thursday, we had the E470 meeting. We continue to discuss the off-ramp from southbound Tower. It's still about $12 million, maybe $11.5 million in the budget that's unfunded. But what I'm working on is getting it funded in the manner that our staff proposed, some up front to do the engineering and design and then split the construction over the next 2 years. So I can't tell you exactly where that is right now, but it's something that is uppermost in the minds of that board, and it's being discussed every single meeting. So we're going to get something done about that. I also went to the Suncor reception on the 29th floor of their building on Thursday afternoon. We had the candidates forum, and for that, that afternoon at 6 o'clock, for that I want to thank the League of Women Voters and the CCBPA for arranging for that, and also the city for allowing it to happen right here in our council chambers. And sadly, that same evening, Prairie View High School got beat by Brighton 14-12. So, a note of sadness. October 14th, Transportation Advisory Committee over at CDOT, and it's something that I've never really heard before, and that is a suggestion that the public is just not aware of how bad our transportation situation is and how far behind we are in the funding. And there was a short discussion and a suggestion that maybe the money that we have should not be spent on the cosmetic parts of it, the potholes. It should be spent maybe on the underlying infrastructure, not just the cosmetic parts of it. And as soon as people's cars start rattling enough, and you need to start getting alignments often enough, you finally figured out that we don't have enough money to maintain our transportation system in this state. And so maybe you work out some other way to pay for it. I don't know what that is. I know the legislature has refused to put any kind of a state gasoline tax even on the ballot. I mean, the legislature can't pass a tax increase. They have to put it on the ballot, but nobody has chosen in 20 years to put a gasoline tax increase. All the time watching our gasoline tax revenue go down because gas mileage on cars is going high up with electric gas vehicles, electric vehicles, whatever. That revenue is going to continue to go down, down, and down. And so the gas tax revenue is not going to be sufficient. I don't know what it's going to take to get people to wake up and understand that there's got to be a way to collect more money. And we hear about the vehicle miles traveled or mileage-based user fee, which is what we call it in Colorado. Something like that's going to have to happen, and it's going to take, the people are going to have to support that. And maybe the only way to get their attention is to have a bunch of potholes that are unfixed out in the streets so people can understand we don't have enough money. Or you say, well, how come our streets weren't plowed? How come this highway wasn't plowed last night? Well, we can't afford to because we have to pay people overtime to work in the middle of the night. So we're going to start at 8 o'clock in the morning plowing your highways. If you have to get out on the highway before 8 o'clock, sorry, we can't plow those streets. Is that going to get people's attention? This is something that's being discussed by this committee, and I don't know how far it's going to go. I don't think it was brought up in jest, but something's got to be done to get people's attention. I also talked to some people about, I think Highway 270 is getting ripe for a renovation. Now, when I say ripe, maybe within the next 5 years. That's about how fast things happen. But anyway, these are things that are being talked about at the State Transportation Advisory Committee. And the afternoon of the 14th, of course, we had the opening of the Brighton City Hall, which is the old county administration building. And then on Saturday, of course, Texas A&M beat the number 23 ranked Baylor Teddy Bears 55-28. And this will be the first in many victories, I predict. And that's it for this week.
Ms.
Thank
Carson?
you.
I attended the ribbon cutting for the Brighton's new City Hall. It's amazing. That was the old Adams County building that we all used to go into, and what paint and some shrubbery and beautiful landscaping, how it transforms a building. So just want to wish Brighton well into their new City Hall, and thank them for offering the invitation for us to join that event with them.
Ms. Snyder?
Yes, mine will be very brief. I want to congratulate Brighton for their new City Hall and let everyone know that the Derby Review Board meeting for this month, they have no cases pending, so there will be no meeting for that. It's been canceled. And lastly, there's been a lot going on with the Public Safety Crime Prevention Steering Committee. We have a lot of things moving forward, and I'll be bringing a brief update next week for everyone to take a look at what is going on with that. Thanks.
Okay. I did it again, didn't I? I do it all the time, but I'm going to go first and then come back to you. Okay. Community Reach had their breakfast, mental health through Adams County. It's a great organization, and they interact with everybody, which was really nice. We also did a walkthrough with the dog track on Wednesday with a family who used to live there, actually, in the residence that was there. And listening to some of the stories from the old days was exciting. That's the stuff the Historic Society should get a hold of and get some information, because these people had so many stories that circled around that dog track. It was phenomenal. Thursday, they did a dedication at Adams City High School for Lois Kimmons. For all that she's done, they actually named the Health Services Center over there at the high school after her. I was also at Suncor We had the Adams County Mayor's Breakfast on Friday. I actually was in a junior achievement class on Friday, was at the dedication for Brighton, and also Carol from Fiscal retired. It was really nice. And Mr. Tinklenberg, every time you come up, I am just amazed. You have got absolutely the best sense of humor of anybody I think I know. You really missed your calling, because if you got on an open mic night, they'd ask you back every single week, because you just have a way to get through to people. Mr. Flannery. All right. Mr. Gaylor. Okay, don't anybody think they're leaving. Mr. Bullock.
Also another employee that left the city and had a retirement party, Mary Pat Gallus at the Recreation Center.
I didn't know that.
Left last week, and she had a very nice party in which a lot of the seniors were there. It was very nice. I mean, it was entertaining.
Well, I'm sorry I missed that one. Okay, if there be no further business come before this council, we'll be adjourned. And do you need a couple minutes for GID?
Just a moment.
You are wonderful. So we are just going to go right into it. Did you know Mary Pat left? We were just at a lunch where she was at.
Okay, I'm ready when you are.
Okay. Commerce City Northern Infrastructure General Improvement District meeting of October 17, 2011. Now come to order. Will the city clerk please call the roll?
Natal?
Here.
Snyder? Here. Benson? Here. Bullock?
Here.
Carson?
Here.
Diaz? Here. McEldowney?
Here.
Moreno?
Here.
Teeter?
Here.
You have a quorum?
Thank you.
Yes.
Oops, yes?
Did I get Diaz? Mr. Diaz?
Yes,
Did I get you?
you
Yes,
did.
thank you. You have a quorum, sir.
Okay. There's two sets of minutes before the GID board tonight for approval. The first are minutes of the meeting of August 8th, 2011. Before voting on the minutes of August 8th, 2011, need a motion to allow board members Teeter and McEldowney to abstain from voting because of their excused absences. Ms. Snyder.
Yes, move to allow Councilwoman Teeter and Councilman McEldowney to abstain from the meeting minutes of August 8th.
Mr. Marino.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to allow board members Teeter and McEldowney to abstain from voting for the minutes of August 8th. Any discussion? Seeing none. Voice vote at this time. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Motion passes. I'll now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of August 8th, 2011. Ms. Teeter. Ms. Snyder.
Move approval of meeting minutes August 8th, 2011. Council is seated.
Mr. Marino.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of August 8th, 2011 meeting. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, voice vote, please. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Motion passes. Next are the minutes for the meeting of August 29th, 2011. Before voting on the minutes of August 29th, I need a motion to allow Board Member Bullock to abstain from voting because of an excused absence. Ms. Snyder.
Move to allow Board Member Bullock to abstain from voting on the meeting minutes August 29.
Ms. Teeter.
Second the motion.
I have a motion and a second to allow Board Member Bullock to abstain from voting on the minutes of August 29, 2011. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Now entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Ms. Snyder.
Move approval of meeting minutes August 29, 2011. Council is seated.
Mr. McEldowney.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of August 29, 2011. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I request a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Motion passes. There's one public hearing tonight. I'd like to open the public hearing on the 2012 budget and mill levy. Will Executive Director Jerry Flannery please invite staff up to review the 2012 budget and mill levy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce Mr. Tinklenberg to introduce this item.
Good evening again. The summary of the 2012 General Improvement District budget are the revenues of $5,045,000. The expenditures are for debt, and we have 3 debt issues that are being funded. We have the 2002, the amount for that is $538,900. We have the 06 debt issuance, which was $2,266,300, and the 08 debt issuance, which is the annual principal and interest is $1,955,300. There's also administrative expenditures in the amount of $87,100. Most of that is for property tax collection, which is charged by the county. There's also a transfer to fund balance of $193,778 for total expenditures of $5,045,378, matching the expenditures. Mill levy is recommended to stay the same as it has for a number of years, 27 mills. That is necessary to cover the interest rate risk and necessary for debt service if the debt service rate is fixed. We would ask that you open the public hearing and continue the public hearing and then close it at the next meeting on the 24th. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any discussion from members of the board? Mr. Marino?
Just a quick question. Mr. Tinklenberg, I see obviously in the presentation that we are leaving the mills at the same 27 mills. Under what situations would the city likely increase those mills?
Well, number one, the city cannot increase the mills. Only the GID board, you sitting as the board, can refer that to the voters.
Right.
It would have to be approved by the voters to increase that mill levy.
And would that situation likely occur if, for example, we had, if we wanted to pay off the debt sooner or things of that matter? I'm just trying to understand under what situations mills do increase.
Well, you could refer to two different types of questions to the voters, yes. One would be if they wanted to pay it off sooner. I doubt that they would want to because it would increase taxes presently. Number two would be if you propose some additional project, some new project, and a mill levy to cover that project.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Benson?
Well, when you say a mill levy to cover the project, it'd be for the bonds.
Correct.
The new bonds that would be issued.
Correct.
Right. Can you bring up the breakdown of the $5 million? I guess we don't have that in our packet. Can you, a lot of people ask me what that 27 mills is for, and I tell them it's for basically 104th and the infrastructure in the Northern Range. Can you give me, maybe just write out on a piece of paper, on this piece of paper, when you have time, exactly what the 02 debt was issued for, what the 06 debt was issued for, and what the 08 debt was issued for, and what it's accomplishing?
It won't even take that amount of time. The 02 debt was refinancing of the original bond issue, which was for water and sewer mains, and then the 06 and 08 issuances were for 104th Avenue totally.
Okay. Of course, I don't have this. Can you get me this piece of paper? I mean, this slide?
Yes, it was emailed out just a little bit earlier this evening.
Because it was?
While you were in executive session. So you wouldn't have seen it yet.
All right. Because it wasn't in our packet, but it's about somewhere between $500 or $600 a year, and believe me, people ask about that. What is this going for? And
all of it is for debt service, with the
I know.
exception of that administrative expenditure.
I know. I tell them that it's the infrastructure and 104th. So, okay, thank you.
Sure.
Mr. McEldanny?
I actually had a similar question. It's a question that continues to come up, and I know we've published and we have a document available on the city website which shows the breakdown of the tax bill. But I think it is more than 104th, to be clear, right? I mean, when we talk about water and sewer infrastructure, that was the primary function of the GID at its inception, was to establish the infrastructure that enabled the neighborhoods in the north to take shape, right? And that essentially the vote that authorized the 104th was an addition to or an additional function of the GID.
Correct. The The original issuance for water and sewer mains were basically just the trunk lines. It did not go into the individual neighborhoods. That's what's being paid for by each individual metro district within those neighborhoods.
Thanks for the clarification.
Sure.
Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address the board on this particular item? Seeing none, I'll now entertain a motion to continue the public hearing to October 24th, 2011, to provide the public time to review the document and address the board on October 24th, 2011, before final adoption. Mr. McEldowney.
So moved.
Ms. Teeter.
Second the motion?
Moved and seconded to continue the public hearing on the 2012 budget and mill levy to October 24th. Request a voice vote, please. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion passes. There being no further business come before this board, meeting adjourned. Everybody drive safe going home.
I know, that's, I tell them that, you know, it's the infrastructure and 104th, so. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Mr. McEldowney?
I actually had a similar question. It's a question that continues to come up, and I know we've